right, good afternoon, students. I apologize on behalf of your teaching staff and I. We are all at a conference in Florida right now, enjoying the sun, getting tan, while you guys are all in school. So we're filming this video today just to let you guys learn a little bit more about light switches and electricity. Over the last couple weeks, we've gone over a few different forms of light switches. You guys started off with a single pole light switch, then we moved on to a three-way switch, and now we're going to do something that's not as common as a three-way or single pole, but today we're going to learn about a four-way switch. Now you might be wondering, why in the world do you need three light switches that go to one light? Well, this works in cases when you're in large rooms, a lot of in-home movie theaters, just big rooms like that, where you'll have a different combination of on, off between three different switches going to one light.
Alright, before we begin doing this project, we have to know what materials we're going to use. So to start, we'll need two 14-3 Romex bundles. This means that there are three insulated conductors in this bundle and one non-insulated conductor. We also need two 14-2 Romex bundles, which means there are two insulated conductors and one non-insulated conductor in the bundle. We also need three conductors or ground wires. These can also be called pigtails, piggy wires. We'll need three different switches. There's two different types we'll be using today. One is a three-way switch, which means there are three different terminals and one ground. We also have a four-way switch, and this means there are four terminals and one ground. And then another three-way. In addition, when we start wiring and putting them together, we'll use these wire nuts. These are used to keep the electricity flowing, keep the current flowing, but safely protecting the ends of the wires as well.
Along with the other materials previously mentioned, you're going to have to make sure that you have access to the proper tools so you can properly complete your task. The first one is going to be a wire cutter. It's used to help cut down the casing after you get it split down and or trim any extra long wires that you have. Next come the screwdrivers, either a flathead or a Phillips, depending on what terminal you need to tighten down. The next one is a wire stripper. It's to help peel back the casing. Next one is a pair of needle nose pliers. You're going to need it to curl the end of your wire into a C shape so you can get it around the terminal. And finally, another type of wire stripper. You're going to use it to strip down the insulation on your wires so that you can have some bare wire so you get a good close contact. And finally, a ceramic light bulb housing. It's going to be your final addition into your four-way light switch. First and foremost, before you start your procedure, make sure that you are following the proper safety guidelines set forth by your advisor. First and foremost, get a pair of safety glasses. You want to wear these at all times during your project just to avoid any flying objects to enter your eye and causing harm. Next of all, make sure that you are paying attention because we are handling with some sharp objects and minor lacerations can occur, but also most importantly, make sure that your circuit is never connected to a live power source until you're done because you could seriously get shocked.
Start your project to know what you're going to need to do to get your wires prepared. I recommend preparing all your wires first, but it's not super important. To start, you want to go about 6 inches down on your casing of your wire with your wire stripper and split it out. And then peel that casing back. You're going to use your cutters and keep the flat back to your wires. Cut that piece off. And then when you're going to strip your wires, you want to go about 1/4 inch down. Less is better because you can always cut off more, but you don't want a bunch of your wire to be exposed when you start connecting them. So on the wire strippers, you're going to find the proper gauge. Ours is 14. So you're going to place it in the 14. Just like that. And do the same thing on the second one. And you'll do this for all of your wires in preparation for your project.
So now that we have gone through all of our different procedures, how to get everything prepared, safety, and kind of just the basic idea of what we're going to do today, it's time to actually start wiring this. So when we begin wiring, we're gonna wanna start with a three-way switch. As you remember from the method, or the materials, you're gonna need your two three-way switches and one four-way switch. So how this starts is we're gonna take a three-way switch and connect it to our power source coming in. So as you can see, again, three-way switch, you have three different terminals and your ground terminal up top. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna take your input power source, which is your black wire. You wanna make sure that you have a nice little U-bend in there, so that way it fits around the bolt or the terminal. You'll put it in like so, and then you'll grab your flathead screwdriver that correlates with the nut on top. And when you're putting your wire in, you wanna make sure your U-bend is going in the right direction, kind of like the old expression your dad taught you, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. As you're tightening your terminal to the right, it'll take that wire and tighten it with it. So there you have your first input power source from what would be coming from your power. Then you can take your white wire, which is your neutral wire, and then your white wire from the 14-3 cable. You move them together over here. Now what you want to do is you want to take your needle nose pliers, give those kind of a twist and a pinch together, that way you get it started. And then you want to take one of these wire nuts, you'll come on top, make sure that those are both set in there. If they're not set, they won't go together. The inside of these wire nuts are threaded, so that way it takes all wires that you put in there, twist them together, and make sure everything's tight, and that way your connection is not disconnected and it's still flowing electricity through. So there is your neutral wire and your input source wire from the 12-2 cable, or 14-2 cable, excuse me. So then you can come back to your 14-3 wire, take your input, again, you'll want it to go to the right, hook it around there. Again, taking your flathead screwdriver and tightening all the way down. And the reason why we strip our wires to a 1/4 inch down is if there was a lot more exposed wire, so if we took our ground wire here and if it was input, if we had all of this bare, that's an extreme fire hazard. So you want to make sure that you're down to a 1/4 inch there. Okay? And to get that U shape, we'll take the red wire here, we'll make the bend simply like that. This one will come over to the other side and hook onto the black terminal. Tighten all the way down. And so there you have all of your actual hot wires that are going to conduct the flow of electricity through the circuit board connected to all the different terminals. Now you just have these two last wires hanging out, the bare wires or the ground wires. Okay, you'll take those from both of the different sets of cable along with what we call a pigtail or a piggy wire. You want to get all three of those together in a nice tight pinched formation. And again, take a wire nut, make sure you have all three in there. Give it a couple spins so that way you can feel that they are binded together. Perfect. All three are in there nice and tight. And then finally, take your pliers, U-bend, go around the ground terminal, and tighten all the way. And now we have the first switch done.
All right, so we have completed the 4-way switch wiring process. We're just gonna go through kind of and explain what we've done after we've showed you how we did the first one. So to begin with, this is our power source. We used the 14-2 wire. We came in, hooked that up accordingly, As you can see, our neutral wires are put together with the wire nut. And the same with our ground wires. Here's our pigtail. Connecting these two switches is the 14-3 wire. And it's the same on this side as well. We have two 14-3. What's important to notice here is that the correct sides, the correct inputs are on the same side. Same thing, neutral are put together and the grounds are put together. So the 14-3 comes over to the three-way switch. We did the same thing as we did on our first one. Grounds together, neutrals together, pigtail once again. And then here's our second 14-2 wire. And here's where it all comes into place, the lamp socket. To know how to do this, it's fairly simple. If you look in here, you see this little metal piece at the bottom. So if you find that contact, you can look on the back and know where to hook up the hot wire to give you power, which happens to be there. And then the other one will be your neutral. And because we're using a plastic case, we can leave this ground wire out. However, if we were using metal, we would have to ground this wire. So this is our 4-way switch, and we hope that you learned a lot.